Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reality Bytes, the DEX show within a show. We've got a bit of a skeleton crew for you today. Before we get into it, I do owe our listeners something of a very small apology, because I think I did say on the last Reality Bytes that we would be leaving Experience, the Next Think Experience World Tour, in the past. Henceforth, the subsequent shows we would leave it behind, because I know we've spoken about it a lot. We did 2 live shows from it, but then it was brought to my attention that we had left one significant stone unturned from Experience, and that pertained to the content itself. So we have on the show today, we've got Sam, Megan, and Dina all with us, and they're going to be discussing and thinking about some of the most salient, most striking, most engaging stories picked up from Experience. And before we get to those stories, I'm just gonna bring Megan into the conversation. How you doing, Megan?
Doing well, Tom.
Good show. Welcome back. And just wanted to ask you, Megan, like of everybody at Next Think, perhaps nobody has spent more time sifting through the eons of content that Experience gave us than yourself, I would say.
That's probably a title I deserve, yes.
Yeah, for better or worse, right? So I wanted to start. I know you picked out a story, and an especially good one, and we'll get to that in a moment. We've been joined by Oriana as well. Hello, Oriana. And we'll get to that in a second. But I just wanted to ask you first of all, Megan, if there were any like really dominant themes that stood out to you through your revisiting the talks from all the different events and such like.
Yeah. That's a good question. There were some themes. I think this year was really, really cool because we had so many customers on stage really talking to what they've been able to achieve by incorporating a DEX strategy, and specifically the Next Think tool, and also kind of what they're looking forward to. And I think we were expecting a lot of conversations about ROI and maybe even cost savings given the whole economic situation. But what struck me in listening back through all the content and being there at New York was how much they were almost de-emphasizing that and saying that, yeah, of course, saving money right now matters and justifying your spend to leadership is always going to be important, but that they were still really focused on employee retention and wanting to, like, almost that employees are your most valuable asset. And so the most valuable thing IT can do is help you retain employees. And I saw that theme coming through a lot. Of course, being proactive came through a lot. But yeah, I think the employee retention, that was still such a big part of the conversation, really stuck out to me. Well,
employee retention, employee churn costs a lot of money, doesn't it? It ties into cost savings in a fundamental way. But I completely agree with you. By the way, I was at London and New York, and I was very struck by the fact that, despite some of the doom and gloom, justifiably so, regarding the economy for the near future, the customers we were hearing from, by and large, had big visions. They were their outlook was very positive. It was about positive achievements, and that stood out to me as well. But anyway, Megan, I know no one's better placed than yourself to pick out a story, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to hear from you and Sam. You both pick stories from all of the different talks at the events, and Oriana and Dina are going to give us their reflections on them. So, starting with yours, Megan. First of all, what have you chosen?
All right, that sounds good. It was really hard to pick a favorite story. And I don't want to say like, oh, this customer story is better than all the others, but this one did really stick out to me in that I think it was a slightly different use case. And I believe the language actually that the customer used was that they were bending the tool toward their own aims, which I thought was a cool turn of phrase, right? Definitely. But so this one comes from Liberty Mutual, who is, I think, one of Next Think's more mature, established customers. And they were with us in New York. And they told this story. They were talking about how they derive ROI from the tool. And they were, as I said they bend the tool toward their own ends. And a big part of Liberty Mutual's business is their call centers, right? They're an insurance company, a really large insurance company in the United States. So having call centers that operate, that clear up customer issues quickly is essential to their business model. And normally, like, obviously IT plays a role in a call center, but they don't usually score themselves on how well a call center is performing. But they started to ask the question, can we correlate, you have your top performers in the call centers and you have your sort of lower end performers, the people who spend too long on the phone, who don't get issues resolved, whose issues have to be escalated up a level. Can we correlate their DEX score and their employee experience to these poor performers? And they found, by looking at the next think data alongside these lower end performers of call centers, not that it was a direct one-to-one, but that there was some correlation there, that some people who had poor indicators were the ones who were taking longer to resolve calls. And so they went through and they took a proactive approach and they resolved a lot of these issues, and they reached out to these customers that were having these issues. And they found that by taking this approach, they were actually able to improve the outputs from the call centers and reduce the time that these people had to spend on the phone to resolve these issues. And that was not only driving an IT outcome of a better, experience, better technical performance in the call center, but driving a business outcome and really helping the business get its call center times down, which keeps customers happier. So the kind of idea I got from that is, I think in IT, they think about SLAs and how can we fix these issues quickly, but can taking an employee-first approach, an employee experience approach, level IT up almost to thinking about business outcomes? And is that, what does that approach mean for IT? And is it an approach that people in IT want to take?
It is a great story, Megan. I think you chose very well. And that's an amazing correlation. I'll hand it to you first, then, Dina. What stands out to you, first of all, about Megan's sample there of the experience presentations?
There have been very great success stories that I've watched on the pre-recordings of the events in different cities. The most amazing part is that everybody, irrespective of where they are at with their journey, they're trying to achieve the new perspective of making the shift to the IT to actually look towards the experience, the user experience, not just the endpoint, not just the devices or services that we are providing in the environment, but actually make the IT team look towards the organization and the colleagues, to the users, towards the experience, and making sure that we are providing them with the best that suits and fits the requests and to enhance their experience overall.
Absolutely. Oriana, welcome to the show, by the way, Oriana. But tell us what what stands out to you about what Megan told us.
I'm really glad that Megan highlighted that one, because I do think that sometimes it can feel like there's a tension between having an employee-first approach versus a business-first approach, and how does IT juggle potentially competing interests? The way I see it, it's all part of a system, and one should support the other, and that's what we see here, and that's what makes it such a cool example, is that by looking at the employee experience, you can identify how it relates to the business approach. And I do think that it requires an organization that's interested in asking those questions and looking at itself as a system and looking at the different moving parts and figuring out, how do we create the experiences that lead to a specific business outcome. I think the other part of looking at it from an organizational standpoint is the idea that, are you incentivizing the right changes, right? Like, if you want to work towards a business outcome, are you taking a human approach to it that will actually enable people to make those changes? How are you measuring success for IT, for example? And does that feed into that particular question?
Absolutely. And I got a follow-up question actually for Megan about the story. So they were able to point, Megan, right, to a correlation between poor performance for employees and their digital employee experience. Well, how clear was that compared to the remedy itself? How clear was the optic in performance once digital employee experience was improved? And were they able to kind of complete the story in such an explicit way, or was it more sort of suggestive of the impact that could be made through those actions?
No, I believe they were able to complete the story. I think they identified sort of quantitative ways to measure that aligned with sort of qualitative of how is this employee performing. So one of the metrics that their call center employees are measured against is how quickly do you resolve the call, sort of similar to IT in its own way. And they found that by remedying the sort of technical issues, obviously they found trends in technical issues that were impacting like larger swaths of people in their call centers. Yeah. By remedying those issues, they saw a reduction in the time it took for these employees to resolve their calls. Again, not a one-to-one. Some poor performing employees are just poor performing employees, but for the ones who weren't, for the ones who were really facing technical issues that were preventing them from being able to do their jobs, once IT was able to find those issues without them submitting a ticket and resolve them, then those employees became better performers.
Yeah, I don't think you've just picked out a great story there. I think there are instances in NextThink's history where customers have themselves requested a functionality or figured out a functionality of their own accord that have then become kind of integral parts of the overall platform. And if we could present people with that kind of instant correlation between performance and DEX, I think it would be of huge, genuine value. So it might be worth having a conversation with some of our bosses maybe after this recording. But in the meantime, moving on to Sam. Welcome back, Sam. How you doing?
I'm great, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. I shouldn't say welcome back. You're all part of the family, aren't you? But Sam, go on. What have you got for us today? You've been going through some of the content too. Maybe not quite as exhaustively, but what have you? Found?
No. As someone who wasn't able to make it to Experience this year, it's been really great to see all this content appear so quickly and vicariously attend the event, so to speak. But the one that really stuck out to me that I've been thinking a lot about since watching it was a conversation that took place at Experience in New York, featuring a few different relatively new NextThink customers, including Southern Company and Eversource. The chat, I believe, was titled Early Milestones on the Path to Proactive IT, in case anyone wants to check it out. But the reason I found this conversation so interesting was that it centered entirely on the perspectives of customers who have only been working with NextThink for about a year, maybe a little bit more than a year, but most of the participants were still well in their first year of adopting NextThink. And so we got to hear about the early results they've been able to achieve as they embrace proactive IT and learn what use cases kind of apply best for their company's needs and so on. So we got to hear what it was like for Southern Company to solve a VPN issue that's been plaguing them for a long time for the first time, and how illuminating that small victory was for them. And this chat really stuck out to me because I think in marketing especially, we often don't talk as much about those early days of adopting a technology. We're often guilty of overemphasizing the big picture in the long term. We say things like, this tool will transform your approach to XYZ, or customers have achieved these stunning results. And we really talk, I think, a lot about results, and sometimes the process can get swept under the rug a little bit, especially the early days of the process. But I think there's a lot of fascinating details in those early days of any kind of digital transformation where a company is embracing something new and figuring out how exactly they can use it best. So I wanted to open that up to our friends on the technology side a little bit and get their perspectives on not only the first year of our technology of NextThink implementation, but also what they've seen and experienced in those early days of adopting any new big long-term technology.
So irrespective of what stage in the journey our customers are, and whether they are more mature with NextThink or it's in their first year of adopting NextThink, and having that sense of visibility. It's as if you've been going without glasses for a very long time, and then all of a sudden you got some new prescriptions and you can literally start to see things more clear. So the fact that they did not know, customers didn't know what was going on in their environment before having NextThink makes it very interesting on their first year with NextThink, because they're able to see more the end user perspective of things, how the experience is, how they can start to measure what's going on in the environment before even reaching service desk or help desk or asking for help because we're having issues. A ticket that is reported, it's not just reactive, but it's too late. So for us to be more proactive, more preemptive even, we need to have that holistic overview of the environment to understand what's going on, scale that, find some trends, and then build some use cases on top of it, eventually to have a better story to tell and have a value case where we can go back and reflect to say, saving 5 minutes from L1 engineers is going to happen through getting that log from a remote action, or using that new feature to give more visibility to the team where it will help them with the transformation project A, B, or C, and see the feedback, get the sentiment of our users after we have deployed one of the changes in the environment. Adding up all the hard metrics with the sentiment information and giving this holistic view of the environment is really a game changer. So that's why in the first year with NextThink, it's very good for us to showcase, and it's one of our successful aims, that on the first year we show the quick wins, to look at the environment holistically and then pinpoint the areas of improvement, take them into an automated way, and then we tackle them. As we go forward, it becomes easier. There becomes a better baseline for the customer to actually know what good looks like, what bad looks like, and then start to improve or enhance the end user experience as you go on top.
Just to jump in for a sec, what Dina was saying reminded me of another sort of trend I saw with our customers, and like a specific quote that really stuck out to me. This idea of wanting to set a baseline of, once you get started on a kind of a DEX journey, so to speak, that you have this need to set this baseline first, and it can be a little jarring if you've never done this work before. And so we had a talk from Accenture in New York as well, who only became a NextThink customer, I think, recently, or they just stood up the tool recently. And they said the first time they saw the dashboard, their quote, and this has gone on to become a real sort of running joke with the internal team, is, "You can't unsee what we have seen." And that's kind of their slogan, and now their goal is to try to improve on it. So that kind of following up to what Dina said, of it can be a whole new way of looking at the world. I think that's a big common thread that I saw through all of the talks at Experience.
Another common thread that I heard was around how people look for quick wins and low-hanging fruit to prove the value of new technology. And that's definitely something that I've experienced. It's very familiar. You feel like you need to justify the cost, especially if you're in a POV, but it's really helpful to have those projects where you can convince your stakeholders this is worth it. And also, how does it even work, right? And one of the things that I've heard from our customers is both the value of that, and then how do we go from something where we can very rapidly take an action, calculate the benefit, promote this to others, to something that's bigger, more transformational, something that maybe takes a lot more time. And I think that requires a more strategic approach. And also, it requires milestones, right? It requires being able to see that you're making progress. And I think that can be really challenging when you're starting to learn to use a new tool, is how do we set ourselves realistic goals, but also ambitious goals that really push us to get to that next level. And I think being able to measure things incrementally, and I know that's something we're always trying to promote in NextThink, is really helping people see the impact of their efforts is super valuable to both keep your spirits up and also be able to calibrate as you go and make sure that you're taking the right actions and adjusting as you learn more information.
One of the things I love about the stories that were chosen today is that the actual experience theme this year, as many of us on the call will already know, was the stages of DEX. And the whole idea was that all the different panels and presentations would be from people at different stages of their DEX journey. And what we actually heard from Sam and Megan is just perfect examples of people, respectively, at the beginning of their journey, in Sam's case, talking about those that low-hanging fruit and those early wins, and then at the very, very late mature stage, in the instance of Megan's Liberty Mutual story, where you find that really, really future-facing, almost visionary application of DEX and the correlation with performance and such like. So it's, I feel if this is us finally wrapping up experience, at least on the show for the year, and I won't make any more promises in that direction, then I think it's a great way to do so. And if listeners would like to check out either of the specific stories that Sam and Megan brought today, the presentations that they refer to, we'll link to those specifically, and we will also link, as we have been the last few weeks, to all the beautiful microsites that Megan had no small hand in pulling together, reflecting the majority of the fantastic content that was presented at Experience 2022 around the world. So thank you so much for joining us once again. Thank you, Megan, Dina, Sam, and Oriana as well. Tim will be back with us for the next Reality Bytes episode in 2 weeks, and I'll see you all very soon.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.